The following program is a Creative Magic Network production.
You're listening to the Frederic Bai Show, where sky is the limit and space is the place. Here's your host, Frederic Bai.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome. Come on in, sit down, relax, put your earbuds on. This is the Frederic Bai Show, and this radio podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts. We step into the unknown. It is an inspirational, magical, intuitive radio podcast as we chat with charismatic enigmas. That's right, people, artists from around the globe, musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, everything in between. I am Frederic Bai, the man of the hour, the man with the power. I'm just sweet to be sour. I'm funky like a monkey. I sting like a bee produced with honey. And I am Freddie. I am your favorite French Canucker. And today, we have a fascinating interview. It's going to be deep. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be a channeled interview. Yes, because we're going to talk about a channeled book. But right now, right before getting into it, guys, we have right now a free report available right now titled How to Use the Magic of the Law of Attraction. And in it, if you're interested in self-improvement, if you want to get your life to the next level, if you want to take the first steps to start thinking differently, you can use the book. It's a free report. You can read this in under 30 to 40 minutes. It's really fast, really quick. It's really fun. And you will learn in it what is the law of attraction, how to attract what you want, and how not to use the law of attraction. So all you got to do is go to frederickbai.com. That's Frederic with a C, Bai like bye.com/purpose. Enter your email, completely free, and it's yours. frederickbai.com/purpose. All right. Today we're talking with Paul Selig. And Paul Selig, I really enjoyed my time with him because, his book was reviewed by Deepak Chopra, who says it is authentic, straightforward, truth straight from the source field. And I couldn't agree more. I went through it. I didn't read it all, but I went through it. And, it's a very powerful book from what I've read. And Paul is considered one of the most foremost contributors to the field of channeled literature working today. And he offers channeled workshops internationally and teaches regularly at Esalen Institute, the Kripalu Center, and the Omega Institute. And Selig served on the faculty of the New York University for more than 25 years and now serves on the board of trustees of Goddard College. And he maintains a practice as an intuitive in New York City. And, you can find more information about him at paulselig.com. And the book we're going to talk about today, it's called The Book of Truth, a channeled text. And again, it's about finding more of who you are and what you are. That's most important. That's what I learned from the book. It's not who you are, but what you are. And it's, Paul is a very deep, authentic guy. And I love how he talked about his past. And, he was a rock and roll guy, long hair and all that. And then it shifted, man. Just everything shifted. So we're going to get right into it. But I just want to warn you guys, I forgot to play record in the beginning. So as we get into the interview, I asked him about his background, and he goes right into the background. So, there won't be no how are yous and blah, blah, blah. Glad to be here. All right, guys. So we're going to get right into his background right now.
Well, I was raised in New York City. I was raised pretty much an atheist. I didn't know that a spiritual life was something one would want or could have. When I was 25, I found myself looking for something more, really more out of necessity than I thought that it would be a nice thing to get spiritual. And I began to open up psychically shortly thereafter. And I studied a form of energy healing and found that I could access information for other people when my hands were on them, and that gradually became channeling. I began to trust the information more, and that allowed me to receive more, and I began to develop. I did a group in my apartment for about 18 years. I was very quiet about my work. I was full-time at New York University for 25 years, teachings, so I wasn't looking to be known as a psychic or a channel. And then in 2009, my guides began to deliver a series of books through me. There are now 6. 5 of them are in print, and the 6th book will be out this coming August, early September. And it's a series of books on the evolution of consciousness and the individual's embodiment as what my guides call the true self or the divine self. Mm-hmm. So this is what I do now. I travel around. My guides teach through me. The books themselves are the unedited transcripts of the channeling sessions. So really, I don't write the books. The sessions are recorded and then transcribed and then published as is. Mm-hmm. This is the life that I live. I have a practice in New York City. I see clients. I channel books. And I show up for these workshops, wherever I'm invited or wherever I'm led to go, that the guides that I work with instruct.
Right. Now, it's fascinating because, you were raised as an atheist. And I can't help but, it's a contrast from what you're doing now. I mean, that's just, wow. And growing up, you discovered your clairvoyant skills or talent later on in life, but growing up, you must have had some clues here and there. I'm pretty sure on some level inside yourself, you had this thing where maybe there's something more, isn't it?
Well, I didn't think of it in terms of God, or a spiritual path. My mother would probably say we were agnostic, but we were pretty much, I think, raised to look down upon religion as something that was for other people and not very evolved or intelligent or, it was a kind of cultural snobbery, I think, more than anything else. This was New York City in the 1960s and early 70s. Mm-hmm. So that was just the world that I knew. And I was raised without those things. And in some ways, I think there was some benefit to that, because I didn't come with a tremendous amount of baggage born out of religious upbringing. I had even a weird year in parochial school that I was only sent to because it happened to be affordable and a good school. And I remember nothing except there were nuns around. There was no religious teaching that I recalled, and if there was, I certainly didn't take it seriously. So there was really nothing. Right. I did have psychic experiences as a kid, and I had several that were remarkable, and I was very aware of at the times that they happened, but I wouldn't have gone about calling myself a psychic as a result of them. They were usually getting accurate information, in dreams. And then there was one for me, very important out-of-body experience that happened when I must have been less than 6 years old. But I remember it vividly because I was being visited by a being that was giving me instruction. And I was floating on the ceiling watching this whole thing happen. And to this day, I don't recall what was said to me, or whether that was an aspect of myself returning to myself, or whether that was the guy that I work with now. I've never really fully investigated that. Mm-hmm. But that was it, So I think I had a longing for a spiritual life. I really do, but I don't think I could have named what the longing was because it wasn't on the menu that I was raised with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's fast forward to when you really decided to become a clairvoyant and decide to dive into that field. Mm-hmm. Did you have, I don't know if your parents were alive then, but did you have some pushback? Did you have some people in your family and your friends who were like, what are you doing?
I had, when I first went onto a spiritual path, there was a fair amount of pushback from friends, but I'd been a playwright that was, Yale trained. I had a very different life planned out for myself that suddenly I didn't know what to make of. Mm-hmm. And, I was this rock and roll kid with, platinum blonde hair, and I was a heavy drinker and wore a lot of leather, and, it wasn't expected that I would go down this other path.
Right.
And then I found, that I just did anyway in spite of that resistance. And I think because at that point in my life, I had nothing else and it was necessary for me. The psychic work, again, I did this quietly, but I was doing it for many years. And I've only just recently become known in the world because of the books that come through me. And my work is now public. But when the books came out and when I first started, getting some visibility on television, I had to out myself to my colleagues and my family.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't pushback from my family. I think that they hadn't taken it very seriously. And then suddenly they had to, because everybody else seemed to be taking it seriously. And there wasn't really resistance. There was a kind of befuddlement, because suddenly I think I was no longer who they had thought that I was, because what I was doing didn't fit comfortably into any previous ideas that they had held about me. And as far as my friends go, the friends that were really my friends stayed my friends. And, I'm fortunate that way. And then there were many people who I think just didn't know what to make of this, and it wasn't comfortable for them, and their discomfort led them in another direction, or perhaps my discomfort did, because when I was new to this, I was highly protective of it because I perceived it as something rather fragile, that my spiritual self or my spiritual path or my psychic awakening could be, distorted or taken away, and I mean, that was just fear-based thinking. But, I was a young man when this all began, and I wasn't born with it in a way that I was actively aware of, at least. So I was having to contend with a tremendous amount of newness in my world and in my identity, my sense of who I was. When you go from living in a world where there is no such thing as God to one in which there is, it's really kind of like moving to another planet. There's no way around that. It's a very, very different world.
Did some of your friends let you down? Did some of your friends just, the people that you used to hang out with, when you had the long blonde hair and the rock and roll?
The thing is, I was drinking with those people, and doing drugs with those people, and I no longer, I wasn't doing drugs or drinking anymore. So there were a lot of reasons to move. In terms of my work as a playwright, and I was a very good playwright, I suddenly found that I really didn't want to do it in the way that I used to. I had this whole other thing in my life. And I began a life as a teacher, and I became a very good teacher. And that was great for me, truthfully, and certainly kept food on the table for many years. So, some of it really was, depending on where somebody would meet me in what context, they would have a different relationship with who I was. I wasn't busy proselytizing my spiritual path to other people because it was nobody's business. And I wasn't trying, I think when I first studied energy healing and I was so excited by it, I wanted to heal everybody. And I think that's one of those awkward passages that many people go through when they first study energy healing. But for me, that was really a life changer, because my experience of energy became much more available, and my clairsentience developed as a result of that, which was fascinating to me because, you see, I because of how I was raised, I've never been an easy sell. And for me to go into this stuff, I had to either feel it, see it, hear it, taste it, something.
I see.
And the guys that I work with actually provided very tangible, energetic experiences from the very beginning.
Yeah, you were a skeptic, right?
What?
You were a skeptic. You were skeptical.
Skeptic? I was skeptical. I've never been a terribly good New Ager. I found that some of that stuff, while beautiful, was also a little light for me, and I don't mean light in a positive way. I mean sort of in a way of sort of bypassing what was really going on. And that just may be me and my path. My spiritual path hasn't been necessarily a joyride. It's been challenging. And I've been challenged throughout my growth. And other people sort of just flower and fly with the sparrows. And I think that's wonderful when that happens. I'm very happy for them. Right. And it may be the nature of the work that I do, or just maybe my personality structure. I really don't know. Mm-hmm. So, the skepticism that I held, I was conscious and wary of what was coming through me. I didn't want to record the sessions. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want to hear them, for a long time. And when another medium found out that I wasn't recording and that the guides had begun lecturing through me, she was horrified and thought that was, a real, something that I really needed to look at carefully. And I began to record because the guides I work with said that I wasn't going to believe what was coming through me until I saw it written down. And once I began transcribing the lectures, I began to trust it. Now, whatever skepticism that I still have, is often countered by the fact that I don't care how intelligent I may be or think I am. I know I'm not capable of dictating 6 entire books that require no editing, and wow. Lecturing. On an average, I'm probably channeling, in workshops, a workshop I'm channeling for a weekend, I'm channeling probably 8 or 10 hours over the course of 2 days. These are long sessions that the guides work with. And they're broken up with questions and answers and energy work. But, the consistency of their message and the consistency of their availability to work through me at this level, I don't think is something that I could pull out of a hat if I wanted to, Right.
Yeah,
and that helps me to stay on the ride, even though my own wariness, comes forth when I channel, which is if I hear something that doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense, I question it. And the guides I work with have to come through and respond. Sometimes they'll say, we'll take up your question later and we would like to continue. But for the most part, I feel, I'm not the author of these books, but my name is on the cover.
Yeah.
So I do feel a sense of accountability, and I don't want to be party to anything that would be, confusing or harmful or any of those things.
Right.
So that's the relationship that the guides and I seem to have established. It's a form of collaboration at this point. Because I show up for them, and then they have to take my questions when they show up.
Alrighty, right before continuing this conversation with Paul Selig, fascinating, deep, powerful. That's just the way I like it. And guys, by the way, I want to tell you, we got a free report right now called "How to Use the Magic of the Law of Attraction." And, it's law of attraction. It is magic, but it's not magic, right? If you're interested in a better life, if you're interested in self-improvement, you will learn in that report exactly what is the law of attraction, how to attract what you want, and how not to use the law of attraction. Yeah, it is magic, but it's not really magic. And all you got to do is go to fredericbai.com/purpose. That's Frederic with a C, by like bye-bye.com/purpose. And how to use it. All you got to do is enter your email. It's completely free to report. You can read the report in under 30 minutes. It's a very fast read, fun little read. And fredericbai.com/purpose. Once again, we're talking with Paul Selig. He's considered one of the most foremost contributors to the field of channeled literature working today. He offers channeled workshops internationally and teaches regularly at Esalen Institute, Kripalu Center, and the Omega Institute. And he also served on the faculty of New York's University for more than 25 years and now serves on the board of trustees of Goddard College. He maintains a practice as an intuitive in New York City. And for information on public workshops and private reads and all that, You can find him at paulselig.com. And today we're talking about his book, The Book of Truth, a Channeled Text. All right, we're going to talk about that book now because I think it's a fascinating thing. I mean, now, first of all, what triggered that book? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what triggered that book? Why the Book of Truth?
Well, the guides give me the title, and then they go through the unpacking of the title. Mm-hmm. The guides work with attunements to energy, so the books themselves are literally attunements to the vibration that the guides work with, and people often have, palpable experiences of the energies that the guides work with as they work through the texts. Mm-hmm. And there's a claim that they made in their third book, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. And the unpacking of those three statements, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve, seems to be what this last trilogy has been. And the Book of Truth, in a lot of ways, is the unpacking of the divine as you or me or anyone else in form and manifestation. They say that's the truth of who and what we are, and that what is not in truth, can no longer be held. They speak of truth as a wave that's here now, and it's sort of reclaiming everything. And they talk about, what's been buried in the garden gets to come up, but also that everything that does not have a foundation in truth, that is sort of operating in deceit or a lie, is going to be reclaimed in some way and reknown in a higher way. And this is all positive.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that because I think that's a fascinating quote in your book. But in your book, on an introduction, you write, if you can imagine for a moment that the life that you are living is actually taking place in the field, and the field is made of things that were constructed historically to fulfill the needs of those who came before you, you will understand that the world that you see is made of relics, some of them wonderful relics perhaps, but everything that was made by those who came before you. Yeah. Talk to us about that, actually. Well, those relics. I love that.
Well, relics, if I walk out the door of my apartment building, I'm going to see a store, and I know what a store is because I've been taught what a store is. Mm-hmm. And I know what a building is because I've been taught what a building is. And everything that I'm seeing was decided upon by those who came before me and built the buildings or opened the store or named the store or said what a shoemaker is or a grocery store is. So we're sort of inhabiting a world that is made up of collective agreements of what we expect. We always expect to see what we've known. The guys that I work with are now teaching they're bringing through a series of lectures that they're calling Beyond the Known, because they say until we realize that there are other ideas or other things that can be claimed, we're going to perpetuate what we've had. Mm-hmm. So the idea that we're living in a collective construct, that the reality that we know is a shared construct, is necessary in order for us to begin to move beyond it. One of the shared beliefs in the New Age, I think, is that we create our own reality, which always struck me as somewhat self-indulgent or self-important. And while I think that we do create our experience of everything, there are also shared constructs. My guides would say, you didn't create the war in Iraq. You didn't create it, but you are in energetic alignment to it because you're holding it as part of your reality. If you're an energetic or vibratory accord to that, how you hold that thing in consciousness informs it. And the aspect of you that holds anything in consciousness is actually confirming it or helping to support it at a level of creation because we are that powerful. So while you didn't create the war in Iraq, how you perceive it and how you claim it and how you hold it at whatever level of consciousness you hold, they would suggest, I think, impacts the thing itself.
Okay, but I mean, how can we not hold it? Because it's everywhere. It's in the news. It's on the internet.
That's the whole idea of collective construct. That's what I just said. That's what they're teaching.
Yeah.
So it's about moving beyond those agreements. It's not about pretending that there is no war.
Yeah,
it's about witnessing it from a very different perspective where things can be transformed. Okay. When you're shown something terrible on television, you're told that it's terrible and you're asked to affirm its terrible nature. And then you go right into energetic accord or vibratory accord with that thing you say you don't want. Mm-hmm. And you end up affirming the very thing as opposed to perhaps transforming it. And this is one of the ways we're sort of taught, I feel, to be operating in fear or judgment all the time. It's all about separation and the game of separation. And we play this game, I think, at a cost of great peril. This idea of that we need a bomb to be safe. If you think about that, who gets the bigger bomb in order to be safe? We have the means for self-destruction here. And bombs are actually not made to sit someplace. They're made to go off. Yeah, so we've got to change the consciousness that holds this, and we can. That's my understanding. We actually can.
But can we really change someone else's consciousness? Okay, talking about bombs, talking about North Korea and all that stuff. Can we really change it? Because we can't. Yes. We can change ourselves, but we can't change this guy.
Through fixing anybody or telling anybody else what to believe, because that would be your opinion.
Yeah.
And people in other parts of the world who think that we're villains are completely justified in that thinking. So everybody gets to be right in their strange way at the cost of other things. The guides that I work with say that inherently the divine is present in all manifestation. So how you transform is by the witnessing of the inherent divinity in anyone or anything. That means you don't agree to the bull that you're asked to see. When I'm being told that someone is terrible and I confirm that, I've actually put someone out of the light as best I can. And by doing that, I've called myself right to the darkness that I've put them in. One of the basic tenets of the guide's teachings is you cannot be the light and hold another in darkness. It's the height of hypocrisy. So the way you transform is by realizing, which means knowing, the inherent divinity in others. And when you do that,
that can be tough. That can be really tough.
Well, it's tough at a level of ego, and it actually means you don't get to be right about the things you don't want to be right about. But the guides say self-righteousness is always the small self of the personality structure. Now, I mean, I can get to be right if I want to, and I do. I mean, I have this stuff. I have not moved beyond it. I'm much better with it than it was. Because, what you judge, judges you back. What you damn, damns you. What you bless, blesses you back. This is basic metaphysics. And I have to say, I am so tired of people that say that they're on a spiritual path who are more than happy to judge everybody else. And that's my judgment too.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's somewhat hypocritical. And, when I was first coming into this work in the 80s, and I was studying energy healing, the Reiki people weren't talking to the Barbara Brennan people, and the Barbara Brennan people weren't talking to the Mary. It was very funny, and there was this kind of idea. I mean, you'd hear things like, well, there's a Michael channeling in Brooklyn, but if you really want to see the hot one, go to the Upper West Side and listen to Gabriel. He's coming through. And this idea of sort of that there was some competition, of being right or being wrong or being evolved. I don't know that I buy into that. I didn't really buy into that then. I don't really buy into it now. But I do think that if we're really going to walk the walk with this stuff, We have to be accountable to how we hold other people. That doesn't mean that people and institutions aren't accountable for their actions. I think they are. But to realize who someone else is in the face of what they present is how I feel humanity is transformed. You're claiming truth. You're not making them nice people. You're witnessing the divine or the God that is inherent in them because they exist. Mm-hmm. This is basic stuff, I think.
Right. All right. Once again, we're talking with Paul.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead. No,
that's it. I think that's it. That's how I see it.
All right, once again, we're talking with Paul Selig. He's considered one of the most foremost contributors to the field of channeled literature working today. He offers channeled workshops internationally and teaches regularly at Esalen Institute, the Kripalu Center, and the Omega Institute. Selig served on the faculty of New York University for more than 25 years and now serves on the board of trustees of Goddard College. He maintains practice as an intuitive in New York City. And for more information, you can find him at paulselig.com. That's paulselig.com. And we're talking his latest book, The Book of Truth, a channeled text. Now, in your book, you write, it says, well, what are we? At our very core that we could be so frightened of. And you say, the guides say, we have a simple answer for you. You are God in form. Each and every one of you is of the source that manifested you. You are not only the God, you are not the only God, and you must not run away with an emblemization of this instruction. Mm-hmm. So talk to us about us being God. I think, you can take it in an egoic way, or you can take it in a spiritual, deep way. But talk to us a little bit about that.
If you realize that you're God, you got to realize that everybody else is too.
Yeah, that's what I liked about that passage.
You know what I mean? And so early in this work, the guides at times use the word Christ, and their definition of Christ is as the aspect of the Creator that can be realized in material form, which means in manifestation, as who and what you are. And they've made it very explicit that you don't become the Christ, but the Christ or the divine becomes you. And there's a real difference. It's not about the deification of the ego as God. The ego already thinks it's God. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The very first things I heard, and I'm 99% sure I heard this in Channel, and because I wrote it down on a slip of paper and stuck it in a book because I didn't know what to make of it. I heard freedom will come when the throne relinquishes its king. And it was like, what the hell does that mean? And really what it means, I think, is that the small self, which is the ego or the personality structure, rules a small kingdom where he needs to be in control of everything and outcomes and how he's seen. The true self, the divine self, exists in a higher octave. An octave and kingdom or dimension, I suspect, all mean kind of the same things. It's your experience of your world in a higher way. Mm-hmm. And you don't really get to do them both. You do get to choose which way you want to operate from. Mm-hmm. The teaching of the divine in form is really interesting. And what they say is we've all been taught that God exists up in a cloud somewhere and we're stuck in the mud. And that's this whole teaching of separation.
Yeah.
And they say, guess what? God is the mud too. Yeah. And it's your fingernails and your flesh and your tonsils and your hair and your breath and everything you see. So the realization of the divine that is already inherent in form, and again, they use realization not as an idea, but as a knowing, transforms your relationship to the self, the body, and the world. I used to think that it meant that you got to look great all the time and my hair would grow back and I'd lose all the weight. I'd do all those things, that I would look godly in my idea. But the divine, the guides would say the divine has come as you are. You don't have to earn that. You have to realize it. And you can't realize that when you're busy being frightened or judging everybody else, which is how we operate, which I suspect precludes us from having a larger experience of who and what we are and who everybody else is as well.
sometimes do you get confused? Like, because we all have stress, in our lives. We all have, stuff we have to do, and things don't work out sometimes, and we're stuck sometimes. Do you, even though you have this connection with these guys, do you ever get stuck? Like, do you ever think like, oh man, like this is like, it's hard to be connected and be in that place of Zen, or that place of alignment?
Yes, I do. And it's challenging to me. And I have to perceive it as growth. I mean, if you remember going through puberty, it wasn't terribly comfortable. You weren't who you thought you were. Your body was doing things you didn't necessarily understand. It wasn't graceful. And I don't know that growth is always graceful. I mean, if you look at the pains of childbirth, that's a part of the process of giving birth to life. If you've ever seen a caterpillar become, go into the chrysalis and come out, I mean, it's a freaky thing to watch. The thing appears to be devouring itself. So I'm not saying that it has to be painful or hard. I think that releasing my own attachment to who I think I am and how I've self-identified as the problems in my life, as opposed to understanding that I am a divine being, as are you, and we've got all of these things that we learn through, that they're all opportunities to learn, can significantly alter the way that I move through a passage. But I don't know if this teaching has ever been about I get to, run with the butterflies all day. Maybe it will be. Maybe that is the point, and I just haven't gotten there yet. I have to say, I'm cautious of any teaching that says we should feel great all the time. Well, I think if that were but I think, some people believe that that's what this is about. And, there are pills for that now, and I don't know that this isn't a drug. I think it's about becoming more awake. Yeah. And you develop compassion through the realization of what others go through and what you've gone through as well. And that's also a gift.
Yeah, in your book, you write, as you operate as truth, you do not lie because you cannot. There has never been a lie told that was not told in fear. that's the first time I kind of read that. I love that quote. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that, because
it's a teaching, I mean, listen, the guides say again and again and again, the action of fear is to claim more fear. Look at every choice you've ever made because you were afraid and see what it got you. And more than likely, you're going to see more fear. And, lying is fear-based. And the guides go so far as to include white lies, or what we say is, it's okay. Yeah. I'm saving their feelings. If I don't want to go out on a date with somebody, I can say, I'm sorry, I'm not available. I don't have to make up an excuse, I mean, if I'm not available, I'm not available. That's kind of like it.
Okay, but let me ask you this. If you run an organization, if you run a big company, everybody's coming at you. And sometimes, I mean, how do you, because you got to quote unquote play with each person, because each person has his or her own interest. You know what I mean? Like, it's, how do you not white lie in these circumstances? Because you cannot please everybody.
But then you're assuming that you need to lie to please people, and that's a false assumption. I mean, when I was an academic, I ran a graduate program at a college, at Goddard College, and I supervised a faculty of about 20 people, and I had at times about 160 students enrolled in the program, and my job was really to try to keep people happy and to try to troubleshoot and to create a workplace that would be supportive. So, I mean, I think that the belief that it's okay to lie has to be looked at first and foremost as a collective agreement that we make. And then we get to move beyond that to other ways of communication. And I don't know that it's always terribly comfortable, but I also think there are ways to express what we know to be true that are not hurtful. And I think you always have to go really to the idea of intent and what the intent is in any action or anything that we say. Am I trying to be manipulative? Am I trying to keep the peace by making something up? I face all these things too. I'm certainly not an expert at them. But one of the things that I've become much better with in my life is not making choices based in fear. And truthfully, lying makes me physically uncomfortable. I just don't do it. It makes me sick. I don't want to live with it. I don't want to live with the repercussions of that. So I choose not to engage in it.
All right. You say when you are invited to fear, well, the guides say when you are invited to fear, and you quote, "Thank you so much, and I don't need it," is always a beneficial answer. The fear seeks to reclaim you as you thought you were, because if you still think you are small and damaged and in need of love, you will seek it in a fearful way. I love that. To seek it in a fearful way. How does that manifest? Give us an image of seeking it in a fearful way, because I think we do that a lot unconsciously.
I channel the books and I don't remember half of what's in them. And so when I heard this quote, I went, wow, that's really interesting. I still do that. So if I think that I am unworthy of love, but I am seeking love, I am coming to my seeking from a place of not believing that I'm worthy of what I say that I want. And then consequently, I'm probably going to get just that. I will be validated in my lack of worth. The guides say that we're always ordering off of the menu of what we think we're allowed. It doesn't occur to us. If you go to a restaurant with $5 in your pocket, it doesn't occur to you to order the lobster. You just won't do it. Yeah. And if I feel that I'm unworthy of love, I'm probably not going to be able to claim it for myself or accept it if it's really offered. I mean, this is one of the areas of my life that I get to work on. So, I understand this one.
Could it be seeking love in a way that will deceive you? You know what I mean? You will just settle for less than what you're really worth. Maybe that's what it is.
Could be, I suppose. I suppose it could look that way. Yes.
Yeah. All right. On page 116, you write, to justify yourselves to anyone is to give your authority away. To decide for yourself that you have the right to be as you are is a claim to freedom. I love that. That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that too, because we need to justify ourselves. Just to give our authority away. That's true. It's just, I get the feeling of it. Can you explain to us? Can you go deeper into that?
I can try to. The small self or the personality self, the guides would say, is always seeking to justify itself through its relationship to the world. The guides say that the true self or the divine self does not seek the approval of others, really doesn't care what other people think of him or her. They've moved beyond that. They're not operating from that place of fear or need, so they're not creating from it. So if I'm looking for somebody else's approval, I'm pretty well assured to be operating from that other place, which means I'm giving other people the ability to decide for me how I am. Now, I suppose that there are exceptions, as I'm going to guess, but because I was a teacher for so long, that, if somebody's trying to learn something and they want to show me what they've done and I'm going to help them improve it, that's not about their own sense of self. That's about learning and ability. I don't know how to fix a car. I don't even know how to drive. So I'd be very grateful if somebody would get me in a car and teach me. I'm old enough. I should have learned this 30 years ago. So but I'm not, asking for their approval for my lack of ability, or I'm not asking them to make me approve worthy, I suppose, by doing something. So I think this comes down to a very essential place of, do we know who we are? And the true self, or the divine self, has to be worthy by nature of its being. It's the small self that doesn't know this.
Yeah, right. Do you type or write, like your books?
They're spoken. They're all verbal dictations. They're all recorded. The only things that I've typed up the transcript of the recordings for the first few books. Now there's a lovely woman who's been doing them, and she's a much better speller and punctuator than I will ever be. So I'm grateful, because it's saved. Now all I do is sit there with my eyes closed. The last book, which will be out shortly, the entire book was dictated in front of students in workshops around the country.
Wow.
And so there's no editing. So you're really looking at the transcript of a verbal dictation in the form of a book. There's no editing, except the only things that get edited occasionally, we include student questions in the final transcript of the book, and sometimes people meander while they're asking their questions. Well, they find out what they want to say. We'll distill the question. We won't do anything to the answer from the guides. That will stay exactly.
What do the guides look like? Something? What do they look like? Do you have an image in your head, or is just?
Yeah, I have one specific one because I've seen him twice. He's a man. He's got pale blue eyes with deep compassion, a long beard, and he wears a very odd hat. It's very tall. It's got a peaked forehead. It's like a skull cap, I suppose, with a pitch at the top, a peak, and then it goes up, straight up, and then there's a flat surface on the top, kind of like the things you wear to graduate, what you would wear to a graduation, a mortar or whatever that's called. But it's way up high, and it's a surprising hat. And he carried, the first time I saw him, he carried a scepter, which was interesting, that was gold and embossed. It was solid gold, and it was embossed with hieroglyphics. I saw it, and he showed it to me he said, this is what we attune people with, as he was showing me this thing. And I understood what to look at, but I didn't know where the symbols were from. I knew that it wasn't Egypt and that it was pre-Egyptian. That's all I could really tell. When I channel, my eyes often turn that pale blue, which has been reported a lot. I've not seen it, but they work with people that happens.
Do you think that we all have a muse, or
a muse, a guide? Yes, I do. I do.
I think mine is a woman for some reason. I think that, I don't know. I think mine is a woman for some reason. I think that, I don't know. I just feel that the creative energy is feminine energy for me, but we got a few minutes left. So tell us where we can find you again and where we can buy your book.
Well, you can get the books at most booksellers, Barnes & Noble, Amazon online, IndieBound, they're all around. I am available through my website, which is Paul Selig, PaulSelig.com. I do a live stream channeling most Wednesday nights that people can sign up for and take questions. And I do workshops all over the world right now. So there are workshops coming up soon in New York City, in Toronto, at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California, in Santa Fe, Chicago, all over. But there's a calendar up on the website, and the workshops are run by the guides. The guides teach, and they get everybody working with the energy that they bring through.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you very much for this interview. Really glad to very inspiring. So thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Alrighty, another amazing interview. Wow, I love that. I love that. I love that. Love that. You know, it's a spiritual interview. It's a deep interview. It's a real powerful interview. And, you know, I really encourage you to get the book. It's really great, man. It's the book of truth. And I loved how he said that he only spoke it. You know, he only spoke about the book. So that you know, and he spoke the book and then someone else wrote it. I think that's a powerful thing. So anyway, guys, you can get the book, by the way, from our Amazon link at fredericbuy.com. All you got to do is go to fredericbuy.com. That's Frederic with a C, buy.com, and click the Amazon link on the sidebar. And it's also for all your online purchases. So, and what it does is, and when you do that, Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show, and it helps cover production costs at no additional cost to you, no hidden fees, no nothing. So go to fredericbuy.com and click the Amazon link in the sidebar. It really helps a brother out. So I'm going to ride off into the sunset here. I got a few things to do today. Take care of business. All right, so that's all for today, folks. I'm going to go. Stay safe, and don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, and bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Frederic Buy Show. For more information, go to fredericbuy.com. That's Frederic with a C, buy like bye-bye.com.